All right, hey, how's it going, everybody? My name is Amos, and in this video, we're going to be covering 17 stocks that just increased their dividend payouts. Because that's the whole point of dividend growth investing, right? For our passive income to be growing without any effort on our part because we are invested into high-quality compounders. So not only does our passive income get bigger year over year, but we also get the share price appreciation. So it's a win-win all around. So let's celebrate and let's take a look at and evaluate the 17 stocks that did so. Their first one is going to be PNC. Now, it's probably one of the better banks that I evaluated and analyzed in the bank industry ranking video that I published not too long ago. And as you can see on your screen right now, their dividend growth is going from $6.40 every 12 months to now $6.80. Effectively, the dividend growth rate is 6.2%. My rule of thumb is that we need to see the dividend growth rate of at least 3%. To keep in line with the traditional rate and typical rate of inflation. To be double that, we got to give props where props is due. And if I pull up PNC's financials right here, let's just take a quick look at it, right? Their revenue right now is $21 billion. Back in 2018, they posted $15.7 billion. So besides the pandemic, which, can we just dismiss it as a fluke year? If we take a look at it visually, oh, there was an error. Which if we take a look at it visually, it's kind of pretty, except 2020. Okay, don't be a smartass. It's going up and to the right year over year. That's the top line. And if we take a look at their net income, which is the bottom line, what is the money left over after paying for everything to fund your operation? It's pretty darn stable, but it's also going up and to the right. By the way, the dividend is so much more important than you realize and you think, because the dividend is the consequence, the result, and the output of a company doing all of the little things correctly, and they're crushing their operations to the point where they have excess cash left over in that they can reward you as a shareholder. That dividend can't just come out of thin air. A dividend is evidence that the company is doing the right things. For the most part, I think 95% of the dividend paying stocks are doing good. The other 5%, they have no business paying out a dividend when they can't even afford it. They're taking out loans in order to finance it, but that's another conversation of its own. The next company that we're going to be talking about is Levi's. They're in the apparel retail industry. Mainly their Levi's jeans, which almost 20 years ago, I was a huge Levi's jeans kind of guy. Not anymore. These days I like to wear plain white tees, soccer jerseys, and like workout shorts. And the other portion of their business is Dockers. So they make business casual attire for office workers. That's what they do. And let's take a look at it. Their share price right now is 21 bucks. From their 1 year low, they're up by 75%. So if you were able to catch the falling knife, timing it perfectly, you would be up by 75%. That's why I love to apply the 1 year metric and why I personally like, quote unquote, timing the market. Not necessarily on a macro level, but on a micro level. On an individual business to stock strategy and pulling the trigger, yes, I like to buy when they're going down. So 75%, and let's see, their dividend is going from 52 cents to 56 cents. Doesn't sound that much. However, when you look at the percentage breakdown, then it's 7.7%. So pretty darn good. Let's give them props where props is due. The next one is going to be Ryder System, ticker symbol R. They're in the logistics and transportation business. They are a big player in the trucking industry, and they also do fleet management. So they help you to coordinate and take care of your logistics. And I think personally, Ryder System is a way better alternative to UPS and FedEx because they're not doing last mile delivery of packages to a random area in Kansas or Missouri. No, they're doing B2B, meaning their business model has higher margins. And as we take a look at what's going on here, from their 52-week low, they're up by 41%. Dividend yield is 1.8%. Old dividend is $3. Oh my goodness gracious. Are you joking right now? Double-digit growth rate for their dividend, 12.3%. That is phenomenal. Dare I even say this might be a dividend compounder with cheese? Why am I saying that this might be a better alternative to UPS and FedEx? Because they're also in the logistics space, but let's take a look at their numbers. So right now, 174 bucks, year to date, up by 11%. If we zoom out 1 year, 35%. Dude, to get a 35% rated return just from share price appreciation alone, sign me up, good sir. As we zoom out 5 years, Talking about 300%. For your money to freaking 3x in 5 years? Dude, that's phenomenal. I think that's really juicy. And as we take a look at their financials, their top line, let's see, 2018 was $8.4 billion, all the way up to what it is in the past 12 months. Past 1 year, $12.6 billion. Take a look at their net income, $500 million. So it does seem like they have a lot of overhead costs, because going from $12.6 billion as your top line, your gross sales, and once you pay for all of the line by line items, what you have left over, your bottom line, your net income, your profit, is $502 million. That's just the nature of maintaining and the reality of the transportation space, which, by the way, I used to work in, so I'm pretty familiar with it. The next one is going to be Citigroup. It's a really big bank. They do almost everything. Investment banking, M&A, you name it, they do it. From their 1 year low, they're up by 70%. That's a ridiculous number. And their dividend is growing by 7% year over year. And by the way, this bottom line item right here is a hypothetical, like if you had invested $1,000 into Citigroup, what would be your payout annually? It would be $24.70. And for Rider Systems, it would be $18.60. Mathematically, a 1.8% dividend yield, no matter how you break it or manipulate it. $100 would be $8.60 for your dividends. $10,000 would be $180. Does that make sense? So I just threw that in there so that we can kind of see illustrative purposes of like, oh, okay, if I invest this much, then this would be the dividend payout. The next company is also going to be a major and a big bank, Morgan Stanley. $141 a share. Their 1 year low is $90. Ridiculous. They're increasing their dividend by 8%. By the way, today I read an article about a Japanese trucker who had a very hard life. By the way, I live in Japan. That's why I read the Japanese news. He had a very hard life because he was raised by a single mother. I don't know what happened to his father. He went out for milk, never came back, or he passed away or something. Come to find out, the hospital that he was born in, well, they messed up. They swapped the babies, and his biological family, dude, they're millionaires. I almost said billionaires, but I think they're millionaires. They're rich businessmen. So the kid that was swapped with him, he experienced life as a trust fund kid, went to the best schools, had the best life that money could purchase. Whereas the truck driver, he went through a lot of hardships, pain, and he experienced a lot of judgment because he was raised by a single mom. Here in East Asia, Korea, China, Japan, Taiwan, Hong Kong, if you're raised by a single mom, dude, so much judgment, it sucks. But anyways, the article goes on to say that he's suing the hospital in Tokyo because they robbed him of a potential life of no hardships and to be eating fruit, someone to be feeding grapes in his mouth. He never got to experience that. The dude is 60 years old. He had to live 6 decades of a blue-collar lifestyle, and I feel for him. Because when you think about it, we don't get to choose who our parents are, who our families are. It's all luck. And between you and me, I genuinely feel bad for the mom that raised that truck driver because she raised him thinking that it's her biological son. Imagine all of the hardship and struggles that she also went through to not only feed her own mouth, but to feed this kid. And he grows up to resent and hate her because of how hard his life was. And he wants nothing to do with her. Now he wants everything from his biological family. And it's like, dude, that's the making of a Netflix series, isn't it? Pretty sad. And honestly, that's why the older that I get, the more likely I am to hold my tongue or from casting judgment on others because you don't know what their origin story is or what kind of hardships or struggles that they had to endure to become who they are today. Like you probably got to where you are with a 2-parent support system and having the necessary resources. Whereas this dude, he might have had to work 3 jobs since the age of 15 just to make it to the same place that you are. So when I think about it like that, it's like, dude, life is absolutely humbling. And with that said, given the option, yes, I would love to be a child of Elon Musk. Apparently that dude has a breeding problem. He's going around the world right now having children with multiple women. It's like, why can't that be me? To be born to a father that is a billionaire, like, oh, dude, that would be the dream. But anyways, I think our life our experiences and what we go through make us who we are. So that's just me being silly. The good and the bad, I appreciate my life the way it is. I wouldn't change it for anything. I think everything happened the way it was supposed to so that I can be the man that I am today. So that's my takeaway. The next dividend stock is going to be FedEx. They're in the business of delivering packages, A to B, all around the world. Currently $230 a share. Let's see, they're increasing their dividend at a rate of 5% year over year. Not bad. And I know I'm about to offend some people. I don't want to step on your toes, but FedEx is 100% the better looking fraternal twin to UPS. Because FedEx has good management, CEO has a good vision and a game plan for FedEx. They have good margins and they have good growth. Whereas for UPS, dude, it's just been pain for the last 3 years. The next dividend stock is going to be Casey's General Stores. They're in the business of convenience stores and gas stations. The best way that I can describe it is if you're from the East Coast, think of Wawa's. If you're from the South, think of Buc-ee's. It's not just a place that you go to fuel up your pickup truck. No, it's a place that you go to order food, to get a scratch-off lottery ticket, to pick up some alcohol. And fun fact, Casey's is the 5th largest pizza chain in the US. Yeah, that kind of blew my mind. Right now, they're currently trading for $500 a share. And what I want to show you, friends and family, is their dividend payout is going from $2 to $2.28, which means it's a growth of 14% in their dividend payout. Dude, that's insane. And you might be like, dude, that's just a one-off year. They're just having a good year. Well, good sir, riddle me this. Right now, year to date, they're up by 30%. But what I want to show you is this. Past 1 year, 37%. Past 5 years, 231%. They're in the business of operating and running convenience stores and gas stations. What I'm trying to say to you is that if you look hard enough, in every sector and industry, there are dividend compounders with cheese. It's not just the tech and the AI players that are exploding. Even a freaking gas station company is crushing it. I mean, let's take a closer look at their numbers, right? Their top line, their revenue is going from $7.4 billion to $15.9 billion. I think that's pretty darn impressive. They more than doubled their revenue. And what's more crazy is to see it depicted visually. Pretty darn good. What about their net income? Are they profitable? Yes, they are. $546 million. You can take a look at their cash flow statement. What about their free cash flow? Free cash flow is also $584 million of free cash flow. After funding for all of the operations, what's the cash left over? Almost $600 million. What about their balance sheet? I'm kind of curious about that. So cash and cash equivalents right now, we're talking about $326 million. What about their total debt situation? $2.9 billion. So once you take all the cash on the books and you pay down their debt, you still have $2.6 billion of loans. That is a little high, but I don't think that's too bad. And if we take a look at their dividend payout visually, I think this is really beautiful. I think Casey's is a company that I dismissed for the last 7 years, but they are definitely on my watch list because if they're anything like Wawa's or Buc-ee's, I've never been to a Casey's, but I love Wawa's. Their subs are underrated. If you live in the East Coast and you have the ability to stop by Wawa's, dude, you got to try out their subs. It's pretty darn good. Or if you've been to a Buc-ee's, then you know that the gas station and convenience store business model, it kind of prints cash. And as an American, you know how car-centric our lives are. Even if we do have the ability to use public transportation, we would rather use our cars. What I'm saying is that Buc-ee's, Wawa's, and Casey's, they would never thrive in Europe or in Africa. And definitely not in Asia. I definitely think their business model works for the American culture, a car-centric economy. The next dividend stock is going to be Caterpillar, ticker symbol CAT. Caterpillar makes and sells heavy manufacturing equipment. Think of bulldozers, and their business does really well when the economy is booming. Because if the economy is doing well, then there's going to be more construction projects. However, between you and me, if you really want to go with an industrial manufacturing equipment maker, the better choice is Oshkosh Corporation. Because not only do they do the same thing that Caterpillar does, but they also cater towards the Department of Defense and to the airport industry. But anyways, CAT right now is $400 a share. Their dividend yield is 1.5%. 6.4%, and their dividend growth rate is 7%. Everything looks good here. I mean, of course, I want the yield to be like 3%, but if you're gonna grow it at 7%, I can't complain. I think that looks pretty good. And the next company is going to be WP Carey. Fun fact, Arizona State University's business school is named after WP Carey, and they're in the business of doing commercial real estate. And specifically, they do net lease agreements where the tenants are on the hook for all of the property expenses, upgrades, and maintenance and insurance fees. So you literally only give them the keys to the building itself. I think it's a really good business model. And their stock price right now is $61, but when you think about it in terms of their 1-year metric, they're only up by 16%. And that's because the real estate industry as a whole, they still haven't recovered. But I think the real estate industry is really geographic and region dependent, because depending on where you are, your business is thriving. Whereas in other parts of the country, real estate is struggling as a whole. Case in point, when think about WP Carey, they're only able to grow their dividend at a rate of 1%. Historically and on paper, once the interest rates come back down, the REIT industry and real estate as a whole, they do tend to outperform the S&P 500. Believe me, I was shocked when I found out that detail as well. However, right now, they're underperforming the S&P 500. The market goes in cycles and there's rotations depending on the sector and industry. The next company is going to be Darden Restaurants, ticker symbol DRI, currently trading for about $206. Dividend yield is 2.6%. Dividend growth rate is 7%. Their restaurants include Olive Garden, Longhorn Steakhouse, Cheddar's, Yard House, and they have a few other bougie upscale restaurants that I've personally never been to, but dude, I know it's not real Italian food, but I will die on this small hill that Olive Garden, so freaking good. And speaking of Olive Garden and thinking about the Italians, dude, the other day I was just doing some history podcast listening, and it kind of reminds me of how during World War II, the Axis, think about the Italians, the Nazis, Nazi Germany, and the Russians, dude, they were in an alliance at one point. However, I understand what unfolded after that, right? The Nazis eventually backstabbed the Russians and they invaded them, and that led to their ultimate downfall. Dude, the Nazis were so close to winning it all. But I think, I don't know what the strategy or why they decided to backstab and invade Russia. I don't understand why they did that. So I got to figure out what was the rationale or the big vision of why they did that, because they shot themselves in the foot. They lost almost all of their troops doing so. Like, if you want to invade against those Russian bears, you have to understand that historically, their winters will kill your army. So I'm gonna tell you this right now. As soon as I am done filming this video, I'm gonna research and try to figure out why the heck did the Nazis decide to backstab the Russians. But I'm glad that things ended the way they did, because can you imagine if the Allied forces lost that war? Dude, humanity as we know it right now, completely different and would have been horrific. So I am glad the United States military intervened and they took part. You can quote me on this right now. If the United States Army, Marine Corps, Air Force did not participate, dude, Europe would have been lost. And it's kind of weird to think about how, as a whole, our nation, as a country, we have a savior complex. Like, we don't mind dying and putting our lives on the line in order to liberate the oppressed, in order to eradicate evil. And say what you want about the Americans, you can talk trash about us, but I think we're pretty badass. I mean, obviously our country has its problems, but when you think about it, what we stand for and our values, dude, love it. Love being an American. Anyways, moving on to the next company, it's going to be General Mills. Ticker symbol GIS. And General Mills is a grocery CPG. CPG stands for Consumer Packaged Goods. They sell cereal, pet food, snacks, and ice cream. And fortunately or unfortunately, they are hovering around their 1-year low. So they're bouncing around the lowest price they've been in the past year as of right now. And their dividend yield is a 4.8%. Dividend growth rate is a 1.6%. There's a lot of speculation and a narrative going around on Wall Street like, oh, the value in consumer stocks are doomed. But do you really think we're gonna stop eating food tomorrow in 5 years? No, dude. Personally, I don't think the CPG stocks are sexy by any means, okay? They're not innovating AI. They're not changing and pioneering the next revolutionary technology. No, they're selling stuff that we need in order to sustain life. When you think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, I think food is one of the base pillars. And so for me, I don't mind accumulating shares of a food CPG stock while they're at like a 5, 6, 7, 10-year low. Because 20 years from now, 50 years from now, things that are in the grocery store are still going to be there, the staples. When we talk about some of the speculative stuff like the Impossible Burger or Beyond Meat, that stuff might not be there. But yogurt, snacks, and dog food, I'm not too worried. I mean, for crying out loud, if we jump on over to the cash flow statement for General Mills and we scroll down to their free cash flow, they're posting $2.2 billion of free cash flow. And I would argue it's pretty darn stable throughout the years. And if you take a look at it on a share level basis, it's $4.11 of free cash flow. Whereas on the other hand, the dividends paid out per share is $2.44. Absolutely sustainable. And yes, they actually had more cash to increase it by more than 1.6%, but I do support the leadership's decision to be conservative and to play it safe. Rather than being aggressive while their revenue is slowing down, it is better to be safe than sorry. The next company is going to be Kroger's, the biggest traditional grocery chain based in the US. Fun fact, the largest grocery market share belongs to Walmart, but a traditional grocery chain, then it's Kroger's. And I think number 2 is Albertsons. And I always say this, if for some reason you win the lottery one day, where do you put that cash? I would hope you would put it into dividend-paying stocks. The grocery stocks would be where I'm going to put my money. But anyways, Kroger's, ticker symbol KR, current dividend yield is 1.7%, and they're growing their dividend at a rate of 9.3% year over year. And believe me when I say this, it's on my to-do list. I am going to make a video about all of the different buy and hold forever stocks in the market. And I would argue the grocery stores are in that conversation because as we just talked about with General Mills, food is here today and it's here tomorrow. But when it comes to things like EVs or cars or apparel like Nike, Lululemon, they go in and out of favor or startups come and disrupt the industry. But when it comes to stuff that sustains life like water, shelter, food, I feel like that's where I would put my money as a buy and hold. Now, you're absolutely right. No, you're not going to get the biggest rate of return in those type of stocks like grocery, food, or CPGs. But I feel like if you're going to win $5 million overnight, why would you want to gamble it all away and put it into speculative crap? Wouldn't you want to maintain as much of your wealth as possible while getting like a 3 or 4 or 5% dividend yield on that? I don't know. I think it depends on your risk tolerance. The next one is going to be Triple N REIT. And once again, it's another triple net lease REIT. And I would argue it's very high quality and they have a very good real estate portfolio full of convenience stores, restaurants, car washes, stuff like that. Currently trading for about $42. Dividend yield is 5.4%. Dividend yield is higher because the tax laws for REITs unfavorable. Meaning the dividends that you get paid out from them, you're going to be taxed at your ordinary income bracket level rather than the capital gains rate. So instead of like 0, 15, or 20%, you're going to be taxed like 25, 31, however much money you make, that percent. Their dividend growth rate is 3.4%. Nothing to write home about, but that is the golden standard and they are meeting it, so props where props is due. The next one is going to be a public utility company known as Duke Energy, and they operate in the Southeast and the Midwest. And a fun fact is that a good chunk of their power is generated from nuclear energy. And between you and me, I am working right now on the best of the best utility stocks script so that I can film the video. And based on my understanding of the landscape and of the industry, I think nuclear is probably the best pound for pound methodology of generating kilowatts and power. I think there's a lot of hype surrounding like wind energy, but it's not as sustainable and as reliable. And I think hydropower is good, but then you start disrupting the ecosystem of rivers, lakes, and all of that. And then when you think about solar, it's so freaking expensive and it depends on the weather. But nuclear, if done right, can produce the most output of energy in the most money efficient manner. But anyways, Watch that video when it drops. That way we can look at which ones are the best of the best and which ones are the worst of the worst. But something that you do want to keep in mind is that utility stocks are a proxy for bonds, because your utility bill is something that is always going to be there. It's not going away. So for some investors, instead of investing into bonds, they invest into utility stocks. And I think it makes sense. And the dividend yields are usually good because of that rationale and reasoning. 3.5%. Dividend growth rate, pretty small, 1.9%, but still growing. And the next dividend stock is in a pickle right now. It's a retailer known as Target, also known as Target. The complete opposite shopping experience from Walmart. However, instead of getting groceries, no, you go to Target to buy makeup, beauty products, furniture, and clothes. So discretionary spending, stuff that you don't necessarily need. And if you are a white female, middle-class citizen or upper class, you prefer Target over Walmart statistically based on survey results. Right now, they are up by 17% from their one-year low, $102 a share. Their dividend yield is absolutely juicy at 4.4%. Growth rate is 1.7% because they are facing some hardships and some struggles. But what we want to find out is their dividend sustainable or not? So let's jump on over and look at their financials real quick. Let's see, income statement. I want to see their top line and show you what's going on. So I think they topped out in 2023 when they posted $109 billion. But since then, what has happened is Target has been flip-flopping the political aisle. And unfortunately, they have alienated both sides of the political spectrum. And so there's boycotts and there's people protesting against Target saying, we're never going back. And you might be like, no, that's just the vocal minority and people being loud on social media. But as you can see, the consequences are being felt because now they're posting $105 billion, which is pretty much the same as what they posted in 2022. So I think Target, they have a lot of PR, damage control, and relationships with their loyal shoppers that they need to repair. Do I think that's going to happen? I think so. Target has been operating and has been a firm retailer, not like JCPenney's or Macy's or Kohl's that are just withering away. Target, I think, has a very resilient business model. It's just they need to fire everybody in the marketing department who thought it was a bright idea to flip-flop and to keep playing political games. Just focus on your business operation like Walmart. Walmart is not out here playing political games. The moment you start playing political games, you literally are saying bye-bye to the other 50% of your customer base. But before I get sidetracked, we wanted to answer the question, is the dividend payout sustainable or not? So as we take a look at their free cash flow per share, it's $7.68. So from this number, $4.56 will be utilized for dividends, which means they're going to have a little over $3 left over once they pay for the dividends. It's absolutely sustainable, okay? And the next dividend stock, United Health Group, it doesn't matter what your style or strategy of investing is. I think a lot of people are joining forces and are realizing that United Health is undervalued right now. Doesn't matter if you're a value investor, you're a speculative growth investor, your dividend growth investor. It doesn't matter who you are. I think everybody is slowly buying into United Health, and I can see why. It's a vertically integrated healthcare services company that does it all. Right now, let's see, their dividend yield is just shy of 3%, and it's a company that is in a very hot pickle because they were messing around with their Medicare numbers and funding, but also the current administration kind of hostile towards the health insurance space. So not only does the general public hate their business model, but the politicians, they're also not a fan of them. But I really don't want to be the guy that says it. You love them or hate them, do they print cash? Just look at the growth of their revenue over the years. Is this just absolutely bonkers? Past 12 months, past 1 year is $410 billion of revenue. Friends and family, that is just absolutely bonker. And as we scroll down to look at their net income, bottom line is $22 billion. Their free cash flow, I bet you it's going to be just as pretty. $24.8 billion. When you break it down on a share level basis, it's $26.79. Take a look at their balance sheet. What's their books look like? They have, what is this? $55.4 billion in their float. But on the other side of that argument, their total debt is $81 billion. it is kind of high. I'm not gonna lie, that is a little high. But even though their debt might seem high on surface level, their debt to EBITDA ratio is a 2.16, meaning it would take a little over 2 years to pay off all of the loans on the books based on their EBITDA, based on their operations. It still doesn't take away from the fact that year to date, since the beginning of 2025, they're down by 42%. There's some poor balding freaks that bought into them at $600 a share, and they're probably still holding on. They're down by over 50% on United Health. Whereas on the other hand, I know a bunch of you guys have probably bought into it when they were at this point in May at about what, 260, 270, 280 a share? Will United Health recover? I guess only time will tell. If you zoom out 5 years, that is crazy. You zoom out, oh my, do you see that cliff dive right there? Oh. The last dividend stock that we are going to be talking about is Realty Income Corporation. This is a dividend investor's favorite. I feel like it doesn't matter who you are, red, white. I think everybody likes Realty Income Corporation. They're in the business of doing commercial real estate, and they have been paying monthly dividends for the past 661 months consecutively. Dude, that is a really strong business operation. Dividend yield right now is 5.7%, and they're growing their dividend at a rate of 2.2% year over year. Nothing to write home about, but hey, it's growing. Now, with all of that said, before I leave you guys, I'll tell you my personal thoughts and feelings about each company right now. Bam, just like that. So if it says a maybe with WP Carey, that means I might buy into them depending on the right price or if their trajectory gets a little more bullish. And if it says would buy, that means at the right price, I am willing to buy into them, or they are already a part of my portfolio. In the case of General Mills, if you couldn't tell by my whole speech earlier, they're already in my portfolio. And if it says no way, Jose, hold on, let me make this fit the screen. If it says no way, Jose, I don't care about the valuation. I don't care how much of a discount or clearance or a deal that I'm getting. I do not want them anywhere near me. Get away from me. I don't want to be investing into FedEx. I don't care about Caterpillar. I don't care about Citigroup. I don't care about Levi's. And I do not care about Morgan Stanley. But the conversation changes because if we're talking about PNC, absolutely willing to buy into them. When it comes to United Health, I hate the health insurance industry. I really do. Okay, the idea of people dying because they can't afford to pay for their medical treatment or because their insurance company is denying claims, it rubs me the wrong way. However, as a potential investment, I think United Health, right now they're looking pretty darn juicy. They're not a part of my portfolio yet, but in the near future, they might be. Who else do we have? Realty Income, yes, they're a part of my portfolio. And Darden Restaurants, as a guy that has Texas Roadhouse, Domino's Pizza, and Chipotle in his portfolio already, Darden Restaurants is a no-brainer for me. However, their valuation right now, a little too high. They would need a huge pullback and a sell-off for me to even consider them. But anyways, those are my thoughts and opinions about the businesses that have just increased their dividend payouts. Let me know what you think, and let me know if you're invested into any one of them. Other than that, I love you guys. Stay safe. Good luck in the stock market, and I will talk to you guys really soon. Thanks for watching the video all the way through.